And today we're going to talk a little bit about WrestleMania. Of course, it's WrestleMania week. It might not feel like WrestleMania week. There is so much going on at the moment. First, with the event being moved to the Performance Center, then being moved to two nights. The first WrestleMania that's too big for one night, WWE is saying. So this week, in the build-up to WrestleMania, in the build-up to the show of shows, we're going to do a preview of some of the major matches here. So today I'm going to talk about what I think is the best thing on WWE television this year. The most compelling TV storyline, and that would be Edge versus Randy Orton. Of course, they're scheduled for their match at WrestleMania, last man standing. Edge's first WrestleMania match since his almost his retirement match. At the time, we didn't know it was a retirement match, of course, but that was the match at WrestleMania 27 against Alberto Del Rio when Edge defended the World Heavyweight Championship, retaining the championship in the process. Now, I'm going to try my best to do a bit of a linear walkthrough of this Edge and Randy Orton feud. But from the outset, I would just say that, like I mentioned from the top, that this really has been the best thing on WWE TV this year by far. It's been the best thing, in my opinion, that has been on WWE TV in quite a while. And to be honest, I've had this discussion with people on social media, and I've raised this point in a few of my other articles and videos that I've done talking about this feud, that I think this transcends professional wrestling in the sense that us as professional wrestling fans can watch something on whatever professional wrestling television program we're watching and go, oh, that's a great wrestling angle. That's great wrestling television. But then there's certain feuds and certain moments that just transcend professional wrestling and just become good television in general. And I think of it as if I was a casual wrestling fan, didn't watch a lot of professional wrestling, that if I was flipping through the channels and I saw this, I would say, that's not just good professional wrestling, that's good television. And I think that's exactly what this Edge and Randy Orton feud has been so far. It's certainly the match I'm the most looking forward to when it comes to WrestleMania. So I think it deserves a bit of a deep dive of how did we get here sort of thing. So let's start from the top. Obviously, the rumours about Edge making a return to the ring, an improbable return to the ring, really began in the summer of 2019 when Edge interrupted Elias on the SummerSlam 2019 pre-show in Toronto, Canada, Edge's hometown, home country. Of course, Edge did his first physical thing he had done, his first bit of physicality since he retired from the WWE back in 2011. So 8 years it had been since Edge was really physical in the ring. 8 years since we'd last seen Edge do a spear in a WWE ring, and it was against Elias on the SummerSlam pre-show, and that's when the rumours started to build, of course. Edge himself would say on his podcast, I can do another match. He said, when I do my TV shows, I do my own stunts. They're just as physical as working a match in the ring. My neck's got better. I've had surgeries. So it's possible. So the rumours began then, of course. Now, fast forward with all of those rumours rumbling on in the background. Fast forward to a feud between Randy Orton and AJ Styles on Monday Night Raw. Now, there was an episode of Monday Night Raw, I believe earlier on this year, if not towards the end of last year, whereby the weekend prior, there had been reports that Randy Orton had hurt himself on a house show in a match against AJ Styles, I believe. And there were rumours that Randy Orton had injured himself. He was going to be out indefinitely, and we didn't know how long he was going to be out. Of course, this was just an angle. It was a cleverly done angle that we saw play out on the following Monday Night Raw. Randy Orton would come out. He would be wearing a knee brace. He'd be having a crutch there, holding himself up in the ring, and would talk about trying to get back in time for WrestleMania. But the crucial point of this angle, which is why I bring it back to the Edge-Randy Orton feud, was that Randy Orton mentioned Edge by name. He talked about people that have had to retire due to injuries and mentioned his friend Edge. So that factored on with the Edge rumours rumbling on in the background. You then had Randy Orton mentioning Edge by name on WWE TV, and people started to wonder, hey, there might be something going on here with this Edge return and perhaps a future feud with Randy Orton. Of course, Randy Orton was not injured. It was all an angle. He would finish the segment by RKO and AJ Styles, fooling him in the process, and then we moved on to the Royal Rumble. Now, of course, at the Royal Rumble, Not almost a lot really needs to be said, does it? Edge made his shocking return at the Royal Rumble. Like I said, there were rumours going back for a while at this point that Edge was going to be making a return. There were rumours that he was a lock for the Rumble. I believe it was called. But nevertheless, it was an amazing moment. That image of Edge walking through the smoke, of course, when he makes his entrance, he's got the big Edge pyro on the pose, doesn't he? But there was that smoke, the steam, whatever you want to call it, and it blocked out Edge perfectly. You couldn't see through it. And slowly, Edge comes through the smoke, tears in his eyes. He's getting emotional. He's staring at the crowd. The music's playing. I mean, for me, that's one of the best. I mean, I'm talking about it now and I'm getting goosebumps. That's one of the best moments in WWE history. It really is an improbable return, something that we never thought was possible. You know, Edge had to retire because of a neck injury that they said if he took another bump, he might be paralyzed. Then, 9 years later, here he is, walking through the smoke at the Royal Rumble in one of the biggest events in the year in a sold-out baseball stadium, something like 50,000-60,000 people. He's staring into the crowd. It's an improbable return, and it was a moment. It was an absolute moment. So you've got that in this feud as well. You've got the groundwork that Randy Orton laid a few weeks prior. You've got the amazing Edge return at the Royal Rumble. But that wasn't just it. Obviously, of course, in the match that Edge did compete, he teased teaming up with Randy Orton in the Rumble. They hit some double RKOs. They eliminated some people there. And then, of course, Edge would turn on Randy Orton, every man for himself and all that, and eliminate Randy Orton. They sort of shrugged it off and laughed and said, every man for himself, the ultimate opportunists, betters the Viper here. But again, the seeds were being planted there. The seeds were being planted. And at that point, there were rumours about Edge facing Randy Orton at WrestleMania, even prior to the attack, which we'll go on to in a minute. And to be honest, I'll be completely honest, I was initially very hesitant about Edge facing Randy Orton at WrestleMania. And the only reason I say that is because there was, in my mind, the mindset I had about it was, we've seen it before. That idea of Edge is coming back to face someone that we've seen him face off against before. Obviously, there's a lot of history there, which isn't a bad thing. But in terms of Edge not being to compete in, at nearly like 10 years, you'd necessarily, for me, I'd want to see fresh matches, or at the time I wanted to see fresh matches. Edge and Randy Orton had been teammates in the past, of course, rated RKO back in 2006, 2007. We'd seen them be opponents, obviously, after that, but we'd also seen them be opponents in a feud in 2010 when they were both on Monday Night Raw. So I wasn't exactly thrilled about the idea of Edge facing Randy Orton. Of course, the match would be fine, and obviously I didn't see the feud getting to this level that it has now, but I was hesitant. But I'm not scared to say that I was wrong. I was completely wrong. The direction that they've gone for this feud, the promos, the story that they've told, how emotional it's become, I was completely wrong. This was the perfect feud for Edge to return in. It's the perfect opponent for Edge to return in such a big matchup at WrestleMania, because Randy Orton can take care of Edge, and that's really important. We can't overstate this enough that the return of Edge was and is improbable. It's one of the most miraculous things we've ever seen in WWE history. But the damage is still there to his neck and his body, and he needs to be in there with someone that he trusts, someone he thinks can protect him, and ultimately the WWE can trust to protect him. And Randy Orton's that guy. There is no one safer than Randy Orton. The guy debuted in 2002, and he's still going 18 years later, and he could probably go for another 18 years if he wanted to. He's that good. So it's the perfect opponent for him, and it has been the perfect feud. But let's move on to the segment that really kicked this feud off, and that, of course, was the Randy Orton turn on Edge on Monday Night Raw. The Raw after the Royal Rumble, the WWE Universe, social media was still buzzing about Edge's return. Of course, Edge came out, does a speech about how he has grit, how is he even here, his improbable return, and then he is, of course, interrupted by Randy Orton. And Randy Orton really pulls on the heartstrings here. He talks about how much Edge means to him, and how Edge pulled him out of a dark hole at times in his life where he was incredibly self-destructive, which is, walking on the shoot line there. Randy Orton, of course, the stories are there about his self-destructive nature in the mid-2000s, early 2000s. So Randy Orton says, I want to reform Rated RKO, which, again, as a long-time fan, pulled on my heartstrings. I remember growing up on Rated RKO. I loved it. And he officially welcomes Edge home. And it's that great line, the crowd clapping. There's probably tears in the eyes of the fans. There were certainly tears in the eyes of Edge. And then Randy Orton welcomes Edge home by hitting him with an RKO. And then Randy Orton immediately switches into that psychotic heel that he can play. I mean, just to perfection. There is nobody better in playing that calculating, psychotic, on the fringe, on the edge heel than Randy Orton. And he doesn't stop there. He goes to the chair shot to the back. And that chair shot, I mean, we're going to have the concerto afterwards, but the chair shot to the back at that point was so great because Edge sold it so well. He sold it. The pain, the scream of pain that he let out after that chair shot was great. And then that was followed up, of course, by Randy Orton hitting the concerto on Edge to the damaged neck, to the historically damaged neck. And it was fantastic. It was fantastic. You had the crowd screaming out in pain, telling him not to do it, don't do it. Once he did hit it, there was like a deathly silence. There was an absolute silence. And they just sold it to perfection. They sold it to absolute perfection. Like I said, Edge was screaming in pain, and we were off to the races. We really were. So the following week, Randy Orton comes out, and he doesn't say really anything. He's struggling for words. He's struggling to come to grips with what he did. And he's still trying to process as to why he did what he did. And he's looking out at the fans. And again, he's not saying any of this, which made it so great. But he's sort of conveying to the fans through his eyes, through his behavior, how conflicted he is. And then eventually he says, I can't do this. And he leaves. And that was it. And again, it played the story really well because you felt the confliction that Randy Orton had for his actions, which told the fantastic story. But it also, again, with these stories, you don't want to do too much too quickly. And that's exactly what they did here. They didn't do too much too quickly. They let it play out. There was still, the emotions were still very raw of the attack the prior week. So the following week, we add in the Matt Hardy element to all of this, again, which just took this to the next level. It really did. So Matt Hardy interrupts Randy Orton after Randy Orton was apparently going to try and explain his actions once again with Edge. Matt Hardy comes out, explains his history with Edge, and explains that he finally forgave Edge for what Edge did to him in terms of the Lita situation and their personal rivalry from all those years back, and said that any hate or ill will he had against Edge really disappeared and dissipated upon seeing Edge return at the Royal Rumble. But that wasn't enough, of course, for Randy Orton. Randy Orton hits Matt Hardy with an RKO and then hits Matt Hardy with a concerto. Again, it was just to add to this extra layer to Randy Orton, that he was out of control. He was just had no care for anyone's well-being. And like I said, he didn't care for people preaching to him about why his attack on Edge was so bad, and people didn't understand why he did it, his actions. And of course, at this period of time, this was meant to write Matt Hardy off of television. We all know that now Matt Hardy is with All Elite Wrestling, back in his broken character. But at the time, Matt Hardy's contract was expiring with WWE, and this was meant to write Matt Hardy off of television. However, that was not the case because this segment was so good. The segment was so good that we needed to have it one more time. Matt Hardy was still under contract, and they were going to get that extra Matt Hardy appearance and make some even more great television. And that's exactly what happened the following week. It was announced that Matt Hardy would be facing Randy Orton, but the story they told there was that Matt Hardy was not cleared to compete. Matt Hardy, regardless of if he was cleared to compete or not, confronted Randy Orton on Monday Night Raw. But then once again, Randy Orton gets the upper hand, RKO's Matt Hardy, and once again hits a concerto, except this time it's on the steel steps, and it's goodbye Matt Hardy. That would be Matt Hardy's last appearance on WWE TV. But I think this was really vital to the story as well, because obviously, there was such a period of time where Edge isn't on television. He's selling the attack. He's selling the injury by Randy Orton. And Randy Orton can come out and cut great promos on television, which is exactly what he did. And sell the confliction, sell the almost confusion as to why he did what he did and try and get to grip with his action. But that period of Matt Hardy appearing there, that element of Matt Hardy adding to this storyline really did add quite a significant amount, because it raised Randy Orton's character to the next level, and it was good television. Sometimes with these gaps between the major points in feuds, the feud can lose a bit of steam. This is 2020, fans' interest is very short, the attention span is very, very short, so to have this Matt Hardy element for a couple of weeks really did help this storyline, and I think it's one of the elements as to what has made this storyline so great. Now, after the Matt Hardy detour in this feud, we had the Beth Phoenix health update. Of course, Beth Phoenix is the wife of Edge, the mother of his children also. And it was hyped up that Beth Phoenix was going to give a health update about her husband. Of course, this sent alarm bells ringing in a lot of fans' minds, because Randy Orton does have a history when it comes to RKOing competitors' wives. We think back to Stephanie McMahon and Triple H at the WrestleMania 25 build-up. We think about that storyline. So everyone was kind of waiting for the Randy Orton attack here. Beth Phoenix comes out and she doesn't even get a word out, barely. And out comes Randy Orton. And then Randy Orton goes on to cut one of the best promos we've seen on WWE television this year, in my opinion. He just berates her and scolds her. He calls Edge a junkie for the crowd, a junkie for the adrenaline, and a junkie for the spotlight. And he puts down Beth Phoenix for enabling him to come back when he really shouldn't. He said that he didn't want someone else to come and make a name of paralyzing Edge. He talks about his history with Edge, talks about how when he first broke into WWE or was thinking about breaking into WWE, Edge is one of the only people that spoke to him, tried to mentor him, helped him get out of a dark hole, and helped him when he didn't know he needed help. And that's exactly what Randy Orton thought that he was doing when he attacked Edge. And I spoke about at the time about how significant this was, because the best heels, the best bad guys, the best villains, whatever you want to call it, they have an element of truth in their action, and they have an element of truth that you can physically believe in and go, well, actually, I kind of empathize with him a little bit there. I said it before. You think of someone like Darth Vader, you think of Thanos. Think of Thanos from the MCU. When he talks about destroying half of life in the universe, he talks about it because of overpopulation and saving the universe. And you kind of go, well, I kind of understand. I see the method in his madness there. Darth Vader turns to the dark side to save his wife, save his unborn child. I see the method in his madness there. And this was the same with Randy Orton here. You see the method in his madness because he's trying to protect his best friend. He doesn't want some up-and-coming WWE superstar to come along and try and paralyze Edge. So he says that he did what he did for Edge's family and for Edge's kids. He cares about Edge more than Beth Phoenix does. He cares about Edge's kids more than the mother of his children does. And it was a really deep and impassioned promo. And like I said, it was faulty logic at best, but there was some logic there, which makes it the best promo. It absolutely does. It's still one of my favourite promos of this year. One of the best promos we've seen on WWE TV in the longest time. But of course it ends up in some physicality. She slaps and then kicks Randy Orton, but Orton RKO's Beth Phoenix. And again, this was perfectly shot, because after he hit the RKO, they just pan to the crowd. They don't show the ring so that you know that something serious is going on. They go straight to the announcers, who call out Randy Orton, call him names, says his actions are deplorable, despicable, and that's how we go off the air. And again, it was just tremendous, tremendous television. It was another chapter of this great book, you call it. This could easily be like a DVD, a book, a limited series on Netflix. Everyone talks about these limited series on Netflix. If you just played these segments back to back, this could easily be a limited series on something like Netflix, which shows how great this feud has been so far. Now, of course, the attack on his wife would lead to the return of Edge, who would interrupt MVP, who was in the ring talking about the Rated R superstar. He would spear MVP, hit the concerto on MVP, call out Randy Orton, and then we would get another bit of physicality. We would get an RKO on Randy Orton by Edge, but Randy Orton would eventually run away, get chased out of the arena by Edge, and you would see the psychotic madman side to Edge, which he pulls off really well. The crowd are obviously going crazy. One of the last times we saw a crowd in a WWE arena, of course, and it was on. You're thinking, okay, this is WrestleMania season. This is gonna get good. And then, of course, we had the empty arena shows. Edge would come out to open Monday Night Raw on the empty arena show. I believe it was a 316 day. I might be wrong there. But he explains that when Beth Phoenix came out a couple of weeks prior, she was there to retire Edge once more. She didn't think it was fair for Edge to go through it again, the terms of retirement in front of the crowd. And that they felt, or Edge felt, that he couldn't come back from this one. And maybe it was a mistake to come back. But Randy Orton took it too far. He attacked his family, he's attacked Edge, he tried to end his career, and he hurt his wife and he hurt the mother of his children. And now, if it wasn't personal, it certainly is now. And then, of course, challenges Randy Orton to a last man standing match at WrestleMania. To which we get to last Monday night on Raw, whereby Randy Orton accepts and says he's going to finish Edge for good. Now, I've just gone through that pretty quickly. Talked about it in the most linear fashion that I could. There's always a lot of criticism, I think, for WWE nowadays in terms of how to tell stories, telling stories in a long form. But that's as good as it's going to get. That is as good as it's going to get. Like I said, each step there is a chapter in the book that is the Randy Orton versus Edge storyline. Each step there is an episode in the limited series that is the Edge and Randy Orton storyline. The series that, of course, will conclude at WrestleMania. And like I said previously, for me, it's the best feud going on WWE television right now. It's some of the best television that WWE's done in quite a while. And it transcends professional wrestling. It's great television, and it's the match I'm most looking forward to at WrestleMania. But are you looking forward to this match? Who do you think will win the match? Of course, let me know in the comment section below, and I'm sure I'll speak to you again very, very soon. If you haven't followed me here on Sportskeeda, make sure to do that, and I will be doing my best to be releasing an article or a video as daily as possible. Thank you very much, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.